I don't have a dad anymore. And I'm coming to terms with that, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that. We're not going to have Van Halen anymore.
When Eddie Van Halen is mentioned, the world remembers a guitar wizard who rewrote the history of rock and roll.
What would you say your father's legacy will be?
I think he's the Mozart of our generation.
But to Wolfgang Van Halen, he was simply the father who left behind a void that nothing could ever fill. After years of keeping silent, Wolfgang suddenly revealed shocking truths that had never been disclosed before. What made him make such a difficult choice?
I'm terrible. I'm trying to stay positive, but man, it's been the worst month of my life.
Before hearing Wolfgang's deeply personal words, let's return to the moment the entire world was stunned by the devastating news about this musical icon.
Legendary musician and co-founder of Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen, has died.
Died of cancer today.
On October 6, 2020, Eddie Van Halen died at Providence St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 65. The news was announced by Wolfgang Van Halen, bringing an end to his years-long battle with cancer. In his statement, Wolfgang called his father the best father he could ever have asked for.
It was really rough. It just seems like he never got a break. I was very happy I was able to spend every second with him that I could.
Those by Eddie's side in his final moments included his wife Janie Lizewski, his son Wolfgang, his brother Alex Van Halen, and his ex-wife Valerie Bertinelli. The presence of his entire family showed that Eddie's final days unfolded in a very private setting surrounded by those closest to him. Wolfgang wrote that his father had gone through a long and arduous battle with cancer before his death. The statement released immediately after Eddie's passing quickly became an official confirmation of the serious health problems he had faced during his final years.
He was the most loving and positive father.
2 months later, the death certificate provided more specific information about the cause of death. The document listed a stroke as the immediate cause. Underlying causes included pneumonia, myelodysplastic syndrome, and lung cancer. The death certificate also recorded several other related health conditions, including squamous cell carcinoma of the head and neck and atrial fibrillation. These details showed that Eddie's health had been affected by multiple medical conditions at the same time, rather than by a single illness alone at the end of his life.
The music is going to live on forever, but you can't continue without Eddie Van Halen.
In fact, Eddie's battle with cancer had begun many years earlier. In 2000, he was diagnosed with tongue cancer and underwent surgery to have roughly 1/3 of his tongue removed. Eddie later announced that he was cancer-free, but problems related to cancer in his throat continued to appear in the following years.
At the end of 2017, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and the doctors were like, you have 6 weeks.
In late 2017, Eddie was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. According to Wolfgang, who spoke about it in an interview after his father's death, doctors at the time estimated that Eddie had only about 6 weeks to live. Eddie then traveled to Germany for treatment, and Wolfgang said the treatment helped his father live for roughly another 3 years.
2019, right after my birthday, he got in a motorcycle accident that was from, we found out that he had a brain tumor.
2 years later, Eddie's health became increasingly serious. After a motorcycle accident, his family discovered that he had a problem involving his brain, and he was later diagnosed with a brain tumor. Wolfgang said that his father had difficulty speaking incomplete sentences. This was one of the signs that his illness had reached a more serious stage. Eddie's final months were spent in the hospital as he continued to face health complications. Wolfgang later recalled that he was called to the hospital when his father's condition became critical. He remained by Eddie's side during his final moments and said that the last words his father said to him were, "I love you." After Eddie died, his body was cremated in late October 2020. His ashes were given to Wolfgang according to Eddie's wishes. He had wanted his ashes to be scattered off the coast of Malibu, California, and part of his ashes was later taken there in accordance with his wishes. After Eddie's death, Wolfgang began speaking more openly about the father he had lost. from private memories to the things that remained unfinished.
And Distance was one of those. And when this happened, it was like, let's finish it and let's have that be the first song out and put it out for Dad.
Wolfgang's Truth. Just over a month after Eddie's death, Wolfgang released Distance. The song was written as a message to his father and also featured family videos showing Eddie. It was also the first musical work in which Wolfgang publicly expressed his feelings about the loss he had just experienced. As the anniversary of Eddie's death came around each year, Wolfgang continued to say that the loss did not become easier. In a 2025 interview, he spoke about the approaching anniversary and said that the feeling was still very heavy. He also quoted a line from Zelda Williams about how grief does not disappear simply because time passes. What Wolfgang mentioned most often were the important experiences his father could no longer witness. He once said, "There's so much that I can't share with him." Among them were the changes involving Mammoth, the development of his own career and his marriage. These were milestones Eddie would never get to see. Wolfgang also spoke about how the loss affected his personal beliefs. In an interview with Metal Hammer in November 2025, he said that he had been a spiritual person before, but after losing his father, that changed. He described what remained as a black hole in you, showing that Eddie's death affected him beyond the world of music. Alongside speaking about his grief, Wolfgang repeatedly emphasized that he did not want to build his career by relying on his father's legacy. He expressed this clearly in the statement, "I'd rather fail at my own thing than succeed on my dad's legacy." For him, succeeding as an artist in his own right meant more than being recognized simply because he was Eddie Van Halen's son. Wolfgang also limited his performances of Van Halen songs. He returned to his father's music at several special events, most notably the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert in 2022 and a performance at Welcome to Rockville. These appearances did not become a regular part of his work. In another statement, Wolfgang said that he no longer regularly listened to Van Halen. He explained that his connection to the band was different from that of ordinary fans. For him, those songs were directly connected to his father, so listening to them carried a personal meaning that people outside the family could not experience in quite the same way. Wolfgang also kept Eddie's personal keepsakes in his own way. On his arm, he has a tattoo of his father's handwritten words, "Play, play," taken from a Christmas card. He also carries a ring and a necklace bearing Eddie's fingerprints, with the necklace containing a portion of his ashes. Another memory Wolfgang has spoken about is a video of the two father and son playing music together in December 2014. In the recording, Wolfgang plays drums while Eddie plays guitar. The audio from that jam session was later used on Mammoth's album The End, turning an old recording into part of his son's new musical project. Wolfgang's words bring the story back to the musical legacy that made Eddie Van Halen an icon of guitar rock. The Guitar Revolution. In 1978, Eddie Van Halen released the band's self-titled debut album. The record quickly established Eddie as one of the most notable guitarists in rock. Among its tracks, Eruption, which runs for less than 2 minutes, became a defining showcase of the technique he had developed. The most notable feature of Eruption was Eddie's two-handed tapping technique. He used both hands on the fretboard to create rapid sequences of notes, significantly expanding the way the electric guitar could be approached. He did not completely invent the technique, but he brought it to the public on a scale never seen before. Alongside tapping, Eddie also became known for his use of the whammy bar and his control over the guitar's sound. The term "brown sound" was later used to describe the distinctive tone associated with his setup and technique. These elements became an important part of the Van Halen style. Eddie also built and modified various pieces of equipment to meet his performance needs. The most famous was the Frankenstrat, a guitar he assembled from different components, including a charvel body and a humbucker pickup. Its red, white, and black design later became one of the most recognizable images associated with him. The innovation was not limited to playing technique. Eddie also took part in developing and modifying various guitar components, from pickups to tremolo systems. These innovations allowed him to control the sound and operation of his instrument according to his own needs, while also contributing to the development of the rock instrument market. In 1982, Eddie recorded the guitar solo for Michael Jackson's Beat It. Jackson initially wanted a more powerful guitar passage for the song. Eddie recorded the solo in the studio without accepting payment, and the finished track went on to become one of the most famous guitar performances in pop music. 2 years later, Van Halen released the album 1984. Eddie expanded his role by playing keyboard on Jump, which went on to become the band's #1 hit. Panama and Hot for Teacher also became signature tracks, establishing the album as an important release in rock history. Eddie's success quickly influenced the generation of guitarists that followed him. Randy Rhoads, Steve Vai Yngwie Malmsteen, and many other artists have spoken about Eddie's influence on the way they approached the guitar. Tapping in particular went from being a relatively uncommon technique to becoming a familiar part of rock and heavy metal guitar. That influence was also reflected in the number of artists who sought to imitate Eddie's tone techniques and equipment. Frankenstrat-style guitars became widely seen, while performance techniques once considered unusual gradually became standard in electric guitar training and performance. Eddie also held numerous patents related to guitar equipment and design. These contributions showed that his role extended beyond performing. He directly experimented with instruments, modified equipment, and sought to expand the capabilities of the electric guitar both in the studio and on stage. But behind those musical achievements was a complex private life, with marriage, family, and personal struggles that directly affected Eddie and the people closest to him. The family's private side. In 1980, Eddie Van Halen met actress Valerie Bertinelli when she came to see one of the band's performances. Just 1 year later, the two got married. Valerie was 20, and Eddie was 26 at the time. Their marriage later became an important part of his private life. In 1991, Valerie gave birth to Eddie's only son, Wolfgang Van Halen. The boy was named after composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The arrival of their son created a new bond within the family. Eddie often spoke about Wolfgang's role in his life and the changes he brought to him. Eddie and Valerie's marriage lasted for many years, but it also went through numerous difficulties. Eddie openly acknowledged that his use of alcohol and drugs had seriously affected family life. These problems contributed to growing tension between the couple and eventually led to their separation. Around 2001, Eddie and Valerie began living separately. Although they were no longer living as husband and wife, they remained in contact because of Wolfgang. 6 years later, their marriage officially ended. Valerie continued to maintain a relationship with Eddie as Wolfgang's co-parent and remained present during important moments. Eddie once said that performance anxiety was one of the reasons he drank heavily. After dealing with the problem for many years, he became serious about sobriety. Around 2008, Eddie said that he had changed his lifestyle and was working to maintain a more stable, sober life. Another major change in the family came when Wolfgang joined his father's band. At just 15, Wolfgang began performing with Van Halen and later officially took over the bass position from Michael Anthony. The decision sparked considerable controversy because Wolfgang was still very young and was Eddie's son. Wolfgang's presence on stage with his father also changed the way Eddie viewed the role of family. Eddie once said that having his son beside him helped keep him grounded. For Wolfgang, it was an opportunity to work directly with his father in the musical environment that Eddie had spent most of his life building. In 2009, Eddie married Janie Lizewski for the second time. Janie had previously worked in public relations and later became his wife. Alex Van Halen officiated the wedding. Valerie Bertinelli was also present, showing that the relationships among the family members continued after the divorce. In the years that followed, Wolfgang continued to maintain relationships with both his father and mother. Valerie continued to speak about Eddie with respect, while remaining in contact with him because of their son. Wolfgang became a connection between the two, even though their marriage had ended years earlier. Eddie's family life was therefore closely connected to the personal issues he had publicly acknowledged. Alcohol, drugs, anxiety, and changes in his marriage all appeared in interviews concerning his life. These details provide the family context in which Wolfgang grew up. After Eddie and Valerie were no longer husband and wife, their relationship continued to change with circumstances. Both watched Wolfgang grow up, pursue music, and build his own path. During Eddie's final days, Valerie was still by his side alongside Wolfgang, Yanni, and Alex. After the changes in Eddie's private life, what remained was the legacy he left behind, and the way Wolfgang and his family continue to carry those values forward. The family today. After Eddie Van Halen passed away, his legacy and assets became an important part of the family's story. His wealth at the time of his death was commonly estimated at around $100 million, including income from music royalties, performances, and the EVH equipment brand. Much of Eddie's financial legacy came from the music catalog he built over decades. Royalties from Van Halen's recordings continued generating revenue after his death. Wolfgang Van Halen remains directly involved in preserving and managing this part of his father's legacy. The inheritance also included assets and rights left to the family. Wolfgang received most of the interests connected to music publishing and royalties, while Janie Lisevsky received a portion of the estate through the arrangements and legal procedures surrounding Eddie's legacy. Eddie's name also remains connected to charitable work. A portion of the assets or donations associated with his legacy was dedicated to the Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation, which supports music programs in schools and helps provide musical instruments to students. One of the most significant assets is 5150 Studios, the recording facility closely associated with Eddie and his creative work. After his father's death, Wolfgang took over and continued maintaining the studio, treating its preservation as part of his responsibility to the family legacy. 5150 is connected to many of Eddie's recordings and creative projects. By keeping the studio active, Wolfgang preserves a place directly linked to his father, while continuing to develop his own career beyond the Van Halen name. Wolfgang also continues to live in his childhood home, where he grew up with Eddie and Valerie Bertinelli. Remaining there allows him to maintain a connection to his family history, while continuing his present life and career. On October 15, 2023, Wolfgang married Andrea Alsop. During the wedding, he used 316, a piece written by Eddie, bringing his father's presence into an important moment without making Eddie's legacy the center of his own life. Musically, Wolfgang continues to develop Mammoth. His albums Mammoth WVH and Mammoth Dayu Satu established his direction as an independent artist, songwriter, and producer. He later released The End, further reinforcing that path. The End carries a personal connection to Eddie because it includes audio from a jam session recorded by father and son. The old recording became part of a new project that Wolfgang created and released under the Mammoth name. Wolfgang has repeatedly said that he wants to be judged by his own music. He does not want to become a copy of Eddie or build his career solely around the Van Halen name. Mammoth therefore remains focused on his own songwriting, performances, and creative direction. Alex Van Halen has supported that choice. In an interview in May, Alex expressed pride in Wolfgang and emphasized that his nephew was not trying to become Ed Jr. The comment reflects the independent path Wolfgang has pursued since his father's death. Valerie Bertinelli has also continued to speak publicly about Eddie and support her son. Her relationship with Wolfgang remains an important part of the family, while her memories of Eddie continue to be connected to their shared history and Wolfgang's upbringing. As of August, Wolfgang remains active as an independent artist, while preserving the places and personal belongings connected to his father. He continues protecting 5150 Studios and developing maintaining Eddie's legacy alongside his own career. Eddie Van Halen left behind far more than famous guitar performances. For Wolfgang, that legacy also belongs to a father, a teacher, and a collection of memories that cannot be replaced. He continues to preserve what matters most while building his own identity through music. If you want to explore more hidden sides and lesser-known stories about music, legends, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for upcoming videos.